first, what becomes available, let's say with a man and a woman, for example, or a couple, what becomes available to them when they start understanding that consent and what it means to, like you said, negotiate touch. Because I do know I work with couples in my own way in the birth and conception world, excuse me, and I've noticed that very often, I teach them touch for labor, and men want to know, or the partner wants to know, what can I do? How do I do it? And she'll just say, do it, like, do whatever you want,
Yeah, exactly.
he'll say, well, I don't know. Right. And then, sometimes they've told me in confidence that, the woman breaks down and says, this is very triggering for me to do these physical exercises because I'm realizing the only time that my husband wants to connect and be intimate is when we have sex. And now that he's having to touch me in a way that's just to support my sciatica or my comfort in labor, I'm realizing how starved I am for touch that is not sexual.
Oh, yeah.
So
Totally.
that's a big one. So
yes,
what becomes
common.
available to couples when they start understanding this wheel of consent?
Well, the thing to know about the wheel of consent is it's a practice, just like yoga or anything else. It's something that you return to over time, again and again, and there's fairly strict parameters, and you learn things about yourself, as you just noted, and then you take that learning back into your life and you do with it whatever you like. And so it's a practice. And I think that's important to know because it doesn't replace your life. It doesn't mean that every interaction in your life has to fit into the wheel. God forbid it doesn't, and it shouldn't. But because the wheel is really simplified, and life is not that simple. It doesn't fit it all those quadrants all the time. But what happens with you when you play with it over time? Well, let me back up a little bit. If you want to be sure to experience each of the four quadrants, then it works best to take it as a practice and be really strict about when I ask this is what I mean, and you can also just play the game and not worry about any of that stuff. Just ask each other those two questions and see what happens, and you'll have some fun, probably. But as a practice, and you're learning about yourself, and you're having some wonderful experiences that you wouldn't have otherwise, what you discover is that, oh my gosh, there are things that I want. I didn't notice that before. And this will be true. Well, it's true of all genders, but it's kind of endemic in women, people who are raised as girls, because we're taught that when it comes to sex, our job is to keep the guy happy, and that's kind of it. We don't really think. And so what you learn is that, oh, I actually do want to be held. Oh, I actually do want a foot rub. Oh, and it matters. Oh my gosh, what I want matters. Like, that's a news for a lot of people. And then when I ask for it, it works. I got the foot rub I wanted. Holy shit, so the whole thing can be kind of a revelation. So you learn that it worked. You learn how to notice what you want and that it works. You also learn that your no can be respected. When your partner asks, can I feel your legs? And you say, yeah, up to here. And then they do that and they respect your up to here. And you realize, holy shit, it worked. Like, I said no, from here on up, and that was respected. And that can be huge. And you learn that, oh my gosh, it's my responsibility to know my limits, and it's not their responsibility to guess them accurately. holy shit, that'll throw the whole thing upside down, you know. So you start learning all these things, and what happens also is that your repertoire will naturally expand, and you'll discover, oh, I like having my back scratched just this way, not this way, but just this way. Or, oh, I like being spanked. Or, oh, I like my toes being pulled. Or, I like my hair being pulled. Or, I like my ears being massaged. And you'll just discover all kinds of things that you had never thought of before. And the other thing that happens is that you start to distinguish between touch and sex. And that is huge for most people. Because touch is a human need that we're born with. Everybody, we never outgrow the need. And infants will show you this pretty well, and small children. We need to be touched not only for the physiology of just the fact that our nerve cells get stimulated, but also for the human connection and affection that it conveys. So we always need touch. Sex is a different need, completely different need. And even that need is not for the act of sex, or certainly not for intercourse, but it's the actual need is for sexual expression, which means being sexual in the way that's natural for us, which is going to be different than how it is for somebody else. So the expression of who I am as a sexual being is different than your need to express who you are as a sexual being. And so it does. The need for sex is not about intercourse, not about genitals. It's not even about being in the same room. I mean, you can clearly have sex on video or anything else. I mean, like, so it's not, yeah. And you can have sex without your genitals ever getting involved. So the need for touch is not about sex. For most people, when they do have sex, they want to also touch. Most people, most of the time. But the need for touch is not about sex at all. And the only way to, those have become conflated for most people. And the only way to take them apart is to have some touch experiences that are not about sex. And then you discover what the difference is. But as long as the only time you touch is when you're having sex, which is sadly true for many people, then you're going to have those conflated. And that's a common tragedy in many heterosexual relationships, because little boys are taught not to touch and not to feel tender and not to cry and not to have soft feelings. And so anytime that they feel the need for touch or connection or comfort, they don't know how to get it because they've been taught not to, and so they go for sex. And so then sexual activity has to meet all these different needs, which it really wasn't designed to meet. And so, you want comfort, you go for sex. You want recreation, you go for sex. You want connection, you go for sex. You want forgiveness, you go for sex. You know, you want to just rest in someone's arms who loves you, you go for sex, you know. And when you can actually meet those needs, if you want comfort, go for comfort. Forget the sex, just go for the comfort. And so yeah, two different needs, and nothing will improve your sex life quite like learning that touch is something different, because then you learn to actually touch with some skill, and then your sex also becomes better. But yeah, they're two different things. Yeah.
And the conversations around what's going to go down and what's not going to
Yes.
go down, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's like
Absolutely.
going through that list of what I'm willing to do, what I'm neutral about, maybe willing to try, and what I am absolutely not willing to do. So this is something that I personally went through with someone, and it was pretty revolutionary for us. Because there were so many things that I assumed that person wanted. So I actually, because I wanted to, provide a sense of pleasure for them, I was willing to go into my not willing tos and sacrifice, or maybe in a sense be a martyr, so that they could have something that I was assuming they wanted. So then when they told me, I actually don't want that thing, I was like, is this how most people are? It's just like shooting around in the dark. Like, I assumed you wanted, so I'm doing it. But now that we've actually talked, I realize neither of us want the thing.
Happens all the time. All the time. Yeah. Well, you play with a 3-minute game for a while, that sort of stuff will stop. Because you'll start to notice, oh, wait, this actually works, this communication thing. It actually works.
Communication works. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
And so
it's very common.
It's very common. And like you said, I mean, I know many couples as friends, as clients in the community, and it's very common what you said. I feel more so with men, because as young boys, there are not a lot of opportunities given for forming bonds and connections, either physically or even verbally or whatever it is. And so sex becomes the only opportunity for men to connect and meet a long list of needs. And so this could be where a lot of the breakdowns are happening, because some women, for them, they want the eye contact. For them, that's connecting. For them, that's meeting a need. And it has nothing to do with, penetration in 10 minutes. So,
right.
But I think for many men, it's like, oh, we're making eye contact. That means penetration in 10 minutes.
That's right.
So
That's right.
it's